I mean, we're good with Coach Day here. We'll start here locally. We'll start with Dave Biddle. Dave, go ahead.
Brian, do you anticipate that Gabe Van Sickle will start at right guard against Miami? And regardless of that, like, when did Gabe kind of prove to you if we need him, he'll be ready?
Yeah, well, it starts in practice, and gaining trust with your coaches and with your teammates, and he's done that, and has shown in games what he can do, and so he and Josh will continue to roll right now, but we feel confident with both of those guys in the game. They've shown some really good things, and Gabe did a good job. We went in there, in some of these recent games, so that's been good for us, in terms of the depth. But that position is going to be important, as we go into these playoffs, where Tegra had been in there most of the season, so that this week of practice will be very important for those guys.
Or is he out for the rest of the year?
We're going to take it, as it goes, but probably be a little while, maybe, at least a few weeks, anyways.
Ryan, has anything changed with Brian? I know he was not available with the rest of the offense earlier. What's the plan moving forward there?
Yeah, so first off, we just really happy for Brian and the opportunity that he's getting. It's such a strange calendar, and the timing is brutal, and but he's handled it great, as you can imagine, and so right now as we move forward, he's coaching the receivers. It's a lot on his plate. It's a lot to manage. So we're kind of taking it day to day right now, just in terms of as we move forward, going into the game. It'll be a group effort. Keenan will be very much involved. Everybody will be involved with the play calling. Ultimately, it'll be my decision, what calls go into the game in this game. Kind of wanted to take that off of Brian's plate as we head into the playoffs, because he's got so much going on with what he's trying to do. But he's working hard towards it, and we're just going to keep evaluating it every day to see what's best for the group.
You had tried to work away from that, give that up. And this was obviously not the ideal scenario for you. You've done it before, though. Do you have any reluctance to do it?
No, not at all. I do think, sometimes the best setting is, when you're up in the box and you have everything organized, as opposed to being down on the field. But, done it before, and we have a great group of guys here, between Keenan and Billy and Tyler, Locke. This is a great group of guys, and everybody else that's part of it. So, we're going to work hard putting this game plan together. Today's a big practice for us as we move forward, and it's our job to put the guys in the best position to be successful. So, as you know, a big part of it is the organization and making sure the game plan's right and what we're doing. And then, the play calling we'll organize and make sure it's efficient.
Yeah, does it help that, and by the way, is it like getting back on a bike, becoming a play caller again?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm involved with most of what goes on anyway, so we'll be good. We have good guys, and it'll be a group effort. But no, it's I think players would tell you that we're all involved with it anyways. So a lot of the decisions have been made before it even happens, and I think that's part of play calling, is making sure you're organized so that when you get into situations, we already know what the call is, and when you're at your best, the players already know what the call is before it even happens. So. We'll make sure we're organized and make sure, again, like it's really, really efficient.
Is it benefit that your players and everybody got to see Miami on Saturday? I mean, over the weekend, whatever day that was, and have an idea of sort of what's coming to Malachi Tony or Reuben Bain, et cetera?
Well, I think leading up to it, we knew that both teams were very good. We knew it was going to be a battle, and that's exactly what it was. I know that the wind played into it, so there was a lot of things in the game, that led to the way it played out. But, this is a really talented team. I mean, really talented. They got players all over the field. And so I think our guys knew that. I think they knew that both teams playing were good teams. But once you get done with the game, you finally know who you're playing. So that, you kind of get, focused and targeted. And, there's a lot of carryover. Some of the guys on our team know other guys, the guys on their team, and grew up around them. So they're excited. There was just an energy yesterday in the building as we got to work, and so these guys are excited to get back in here today for practice.
Coach, knowing how disappointed you were and the guys were coming out of the Indiana game, what do you see when you look in your guys' eyes, and do you see an edge?
Well, when you have this layoff in between the regular season and the first game, you have to identify a lot of different things. First off, coming off the season, you have your self scout, you have different things you want to look at, but then also, like you said, keeping your edge, and you have to sit on that loss for a while, and that's not fun, but it does wake us up early in the morning and keep us here late at night and making sure that we're doing everything we can because the issues are always there, and against good opponents, they get brought to the forefront. So those are the things we have to get fixed and addressed, and there's been really good practices here, spirited practices, and these guys are excited to get back on the field.
Their defense got your attention. Miami's, what do you see when you see them?
Really, really talented across the board, back end, front end. I mean, NFL players all over the field. So it'll be a huge challenge for our offense, which our guys are excited for.
Ryan, Jeremiah was just in here with us and just talking about that he was concerned at some point of whether he'd be able to play in the Michigan game, that he wasn't 100% then. He feels like he is 100% now. Just again, to see a player of that skill level fight through that, get out on the field for his team, but then if he's healthy now, what that might mean for the playoff.
Now, I think if people really knew, leading up to that game, what he went through to get himself healthy to play in that game and then play the way he did without really practicing much that week, you'd be amazed. I mean, and somewhere with Carnell. And so it's great to have these guys healthy again and practicing. And a big part of the rhythm, too, is the practicing and the confidence and the timing of everything that goes with the passing game. And so having these guys out there on the field for practice is building everybody's confidence, and you can see it. And that's going to be important here as we lead up to this game.
Ryan, now that you've had a little bit of time off, what did you learn when you rewatched everything from the red zone, and how do you guys think that you've attacked that through the last couple weeks?
I mean, as we all know, that's what it comes down to in these big games is the situations. And, we didn't do a good enough job on third down in the red zone. And certainly, you combine short yardage and the red zone in the same spots. Just wasn't well done. So, we gotta do a better job down there. And certainly it's our job to make sure that we have the right guys in a situation to be successful, whether it's the right calls, the right schemes, the right groupings, like whatever it might be. And that's it. But it's everybody involved with it. And, we'll keep working to make sure that we do a good job of scoring touchdowns when we get down there. And our guys understand how important that is, and so we've spent some extra time down there, obviously during our practices already, and it's the same thing on defense. When they get down there, we got to win those battles. But that's playing, and when you look at the teams, even who played this past week, the teams who score touchdowns when they get down there typically win. The ones who don't, or don't get any points, typically put themselves at risk. So it's a tough lesson to learn, but certainly one that we're going to get.
I know you've said a lot in the past that you learn a lot from your players, your team, you go through some adversity. I know you haven't been back on the field for a game, but just going through what you guys have gone through the last couple of weeks, what have you learned about this group, seeing them in front?
I don't think there's anything learned. I think everybody's just moving around, with an edge. Everybody, is pissed off. Everybody just wants to get it right and wants to, win. Nobody likes to lose. I mean, nobody. And it's a game that we felt like we shouldn't have lost. But, you got to learn from it and grow from it and move on. So, and when you sit on it for this long of a time, it doesn't sit well. And so, we got to make sure that, that doesn't happen again. And how do you do that? Again, getting the issues fixed. And that's what we've been working on.
Okay, we'll go to Zoom. Scotty, go ahead.
All right. Our first question from Zoom will come from Bill Landis. Bill, go ahead.
Ryan, with taking on more play calling responsibilities here, what have you learned maybe over the last year or so about managing a game when you're not calling the plays that you can now apply to kind of having to wear both hats again?
I think it's more just about, when you're not calling it, your eyes aren't down on the call sheet. You just have more. Your eyes are up. You're with the defense. You're watching the offense. You're watching the other side. You're watching what's going on more as opposed to being down on your call sheet. And I think that's where we got to be good upstairs. And that's where I really need Keenan and Billy and Tyler and Hart to be on their stuff. So that we can move quickly. Billy will get the call into the quarterback because to have your eyes down the whole time as a head coach is not, it's just, to me, it's not the right fit. So, it just allows you overall to have a better handle on your team and what's going on. So, that's been the best. Now, that being said, there's not a game that's gone by where, not involved with every single call and listening to every call and making sure that, it's what we've agreed upon going in. So, it's similar to the way it was before. So, again, it won't just be me, it'll be everybody involved with it, and we need everybody to be on their game.
When you look back at the Indiana game now, just sort of in retrospect, is there anything about that entire situation that you guys just weren't in a position to kind of put your best foot forward offensively in terms of planning and game day operations, and just how much different do you think it might be this time around?
Well, we're not in the business of making excuses or anything like that, and we just didn't get the job done. So we need to do a better job of that, and certainly finishing off drives, and that's it. And we didn't establish the run well enough. We took too many sacks and didn't play good situationally. So, and that's everything. That's, schematically, there was some really good things. I mean, really good things. There was some things that weren't very good. There was some really good execution, some bad execution. So you look at it. It wasn't just all one thing. It was just everything in together, and we got to be tighter than that, in order to win these games and certainly beat Miami.
Our next question is going to come from Joe Reedy. Joe, go ahead.
Brian, you've now been on both sides of the CFP coin, playing in the first round, but now having a first round bye. Is there any advantage with playing that first round game and instead of having that layoff, or judging that all teams with the bye last year lost? Just how do you prepare for this situation?
Well, you have to put a plan together and know what you're dealing with. And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, we played in the Big Ten championship game. Other teams didn't. So, you find out what it is, and then you got to go attack it and then put the best plan together you can to get your team ready to play in that first game. That's it. And it's everybody involved. It's Mick, it's our coaches, and we got to be on it, and we got to get these guys ready. And so there's a lot that goes with it. There's sports science involved. There's, just knowing your team. There's a lot. And there's a lot going on this time of year, as you guys know. But the number one focus has to be getting our guys game ready for this game right here. And, sometimes the hardest game is the first one. And this is going to be everything we got to go 1-0 against Miami. So, advantage, disadvantage, doesn't matter. It is what it is. And it's just about how you handle it and what your plan is. We have a really specific plan that we've talked to our staff about on how we wanted to handle this time and how we wanted to prepare and build up to this game. And so, we're in the moment now where it's now starting to get to game week, and now we got to really, turn it into that part of it. So there's been phases of this that I think our coaches have done a great job of understanding, and then, making sure that they're, bringing that to their players and how we've practiced. And so once we got our new target and we kind of got into game week, then now it gets into that part of it. So today's a big day, team meeting here at 1:30, and it's going to be a big day of practice for us.
Two more from Zoom. First, Brianna McKay, go ahead.
Hi, Ryan. When you were talking about Jeremiah, you mentioned how much he had to go through. It sounded like you were talking physically. When he was talking, he talked about also how mentally difficult that was, possibly thinking he wasn't going to play against Michigan and that recovery process. What did you see him go through mentally during that time, and where is he now, especially going to the playoffs 100%?
Yeah, mind over matter. I remember sitting down and talking to him and said, man, you have to will yourself to be healthy. And, he was wearing it early for a couple of days, not to get too far into it. And I could see it on his face. I mean, Jeremiah cares a lot about his team. He loves Ohio State. He loves his teammates. And, he loves playing the game. And for that to be taken away from him is not a good thing. But, I looked him right in the eye and I said, listen, no matter what happens, JJ, we're going to go win that game with or without you. Now, we need you, and we want you in the game. And it's kind of like a weight got taken off of his shoulders, and he just willed himself though to be healthy into that game and to play in that game. And it was tremendous. He just did an amazing job, and it just goes to show you when you set your mind to something, you can get it done, and he did it.
Final question will come from Christian Procia. Christian, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how's it going? When
You've taken the last couple days to really obviously break down the Indiana game and then also look at Miami's game against A&M, where they were just constantly getting into the backfield and disrupting plays, 7 sacks on the day. What is kind of your guys' thoughts on making how do you limit that Miami front seven to having a day, not having a day like they had?
Block them. Not easy. All of them. Moten, Bain, Messidor. I mean, they're good players, and they come. And I think Jason Taylor's doing a great job down there coaching those guys and the way they play. And so it's a huge challenge for our offensive line and what comes with it. But as we've always talked about, it's not just the offensive line. It's everybody involved with it. It's the receivers running routes. They're not running routes against the DBs. They're running routes against the pass rush. It's the quarterback understanding. It's tight ends and running backs picking up protection. These guys do a great job on defense. They bring blitzes from all over the place, and it's hard to recognize where they're coming from. And then they have this front that just, disrupts the game. So what a great challenge for our guys. And, so we need great weeks of preparation, not just in the meeting room and on the walkthroughs, but also on the field, replicating the speed and power that's coming at us. So our guys are fired up, man. They certainly have everybody's attention here. And so, again, it's going to come down to our training here this next week.
Mike, back to you.
Two more locally. Bill.
We haven't talked to Matt Patricia in a while. We get him tonight. A lot's been said about the job he's done. Is there something that he has done in terms of not just the scheme, but his relationships, or is it just everything? What has been kind of the secret sauce, if there is one, to his success this year?
Yeah, I don't think it's just one thing, like you said. I think, the first thing was building trust. Like anytime you enter in a relationship, through who you are and your connection and what you know, and then consistently doing it over time, which is what he's done. But his background speaks for itself and putting guys in a situation to be successful. And every player just wants someone that's going to be there to get them better, but also wants someone that's going to care about them. He's done both of those things. And it's great to see, have somebody in the building who's been through, some of the games that he's been through, the Super Bowls and a lot of playoff games. And so, there's just a confidence level that the guys have in him. So I think all that adds up to what you're seeing.
All right, last one here is Dave Holmes.
Ryan, last time you went head-to-head against Miami in a high-stakes game, the winning team got Jeremiah Smith. I'm curious what you think now, 2 years ago, the moment your knees buckled there, and as we come full circle, what you think about Jeremiah against Miami.
Well, he's, he'll be wired this week, that's for sure, man. He's going to be fired up. Brandon Innes will be fired up. But Kenyatta Jackson, I mean, these guys, they know a lot of the players on the other team, and we got a lot of respect, a lot of guys on their team that we recruited. So it's going to be great. And it's one of those things when you have an opportunity to coach somebody like Jeremiah. It's special because we knew in high school what he was, and everything that we talked about in recruiting, you're seeing happen. And I think that's the most important thing, is when you say you're going to do something for somebody and they're going to come in and they say they're going to do it at your school, when that all comes together as one, it's testimony. And he's done it. And he and his family are special, and they mean a lot to this program. And I know this game will be important to him.
All right, Coach, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Ryan, will Ryan be upstairs on game day or on the sideline?
Probably upstairs.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Yep.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Just a couple reminders. A transcript and video and audio files will be posted in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic section of the College Football Playoff Media Portal. Again,